What's going on, guys? This is Kaishra, welcome back. So we are back with another video. So in this video we're going to cover OCG metagame tier list, post QCTB, and pre-ALIN or Alliance Insight. So we are going to cover the remainders of the QCTB format that introduce us new supports for Dragon Maid, Punk, and Orcus. And looking on our tier list, it was very evident that that set impacted the metagame by storm. So we are going to cover a lot of decks here, and we're going to justify why they are here and discuss what is the thought process behind their inclusion. So without further ado, let's start. So we have S, A, B, C, and D tiers here. Starting off first on the D, we do have Punk. So Punk was kinda underrated on the first 2 weeks of QCTB, but it was gaining traction on the past 2 weeks, and it got some huge tournament results. It was a deck that innovated by Chinese people, Japanese people, and uh, part of Taiwan. They are very inclusive on playing Punk as a combo deck, but the recent developments of Punk, where they are able to make the main deck of Punk kinda spacious enough for a combo deck. They have integrated talent and the likes of Veiler and Nibiru on the main deck. They have reduced some of the extenders, but I think the most dangerous version of Punk is the FTK version. Oh my goodness. If you found a video of Punk FTK gameplay, I guarantee you it will blow your mind. And it is very consistent on doing that with Bishbalkin and all of those FTK stuff. It also has the wind up FTK and everything. So it is very devastating to face against that type of deck, and it is very unhealthy to pair against that. And moving on next, we do have Invoke Zamina. So Invoke got some huge results this week and last week. They have been performing above my expectations because on the past 3 weeks, there's a feint of Invoke tops, but I was surprised that Invoke got a lot of tops on the this week and last week. And Invoke as a deck is very flexible. You don't really see Invoke as a streamlined type of deck. It is more of an engine deck that incorporates different archetypes engines to mesh with the deck. And the most popular one would be the Invoke Azamina, which utilizes the Finn Smith Azamina to utilize extra Omni Negate on top of your Mekaba. And with Azamina, Mekaba, and your Finn Smith line of play, you are able to dish out a recognizable board while also preserving the genuine impact of the Invoke in your engine with the Meltdown and also the Alistairs. Imagine normal summon Alistair in 2025. It doesn't get crazier than that. But that is not the only Invoke deck that is played. We also can see Invoke Dogmatica with Bestials and other Invoke decks like the Invoke Kashtira from before, and also the usage of Invoke Dogmatica Shadal 60 Grass. It is also seeing some play on some minor regions in Asia. That's why I really think that Invoke is a really solid deck on this year right now. Next, you do have Finlink, technically Unchained, Newbell, Finn Smith all together. Sometimes we see a glimpse of Fabled onto the deck, and it is very successful because it can surprise a lot of decks right now. It is very explosive, very resilient, and it is ridiculously strong going first. Once you set up with your Finn Smith line with Unchained and sometimes Newbell set up, it is very unbreakable to a certain degree that you cannot really do something around that type of board. And sometimes it just overwhelms anything in this metagame, including Orcus, Malice, Memento Atlan. Once this deck goes first and set ups that huge board, I think most decks will really struggle without their board breakers or non-engines. The only problem would be Maxi and Fualos, of course, and even Purulia. It can hurt the deck. But all in all, very explosive deck and worth pondering at, especially if you have encountered some of the refined deck lists of Fiend Link right now. Next would be Primate Finn Smith. So this is like the modern adventure good stuff from 2021. We now have seen the development of two engines that creates a recognizable and powerful deck in a singular extent. And with Primate and Finn Smith abusing two of those engines that is very much played on every deck right now, it is very strong and it doesn't even rely on normal summons or anything. It just straight up gas, covering each other's weaknesses and also providing support for the two engines. And on top of that, you can be able to try to deviate the decklist of Primate Finn Smith from each other by incorporating the third engine or archetype into this deck. Sometimes it would be Azamina, sometimes it would just be something like Tenpai Dragon, no? So sometimes it can even be Ryzil. So the deck is flexible and yeah, you could have a lot of room for innovation on this type of deck. Next would be Voices Voice. A very solid deck. It doesn't get any good from this. I think Voices Voice is a deck that is at meta for since 2023. No, imagine that it has been a year already and Voices Voice still proves to be very effective. And we cannot really deny that the Voices Voice is very streamlined, very linear, yet very consistent and also functional. Once you set up the Skull Guardian with Sauravis, with your barrier, sometimes Dex doesn't have too much gas to break through that, and the for one high attack uh, attribute of the Skull Guardian is too much for some decks. And also, the Voices Voice can play Nadir and other stuff like Melodious, no? That makes them kinda unpredictable and can cover their weaknesses of lack of going second and also resiliency issues with the pure version of the Voices Voice. Moving on towards the C tier, we have Mermaid Atlantean. So this deck has been on and off on the metagame. Sometimes they look to be a low B, and most of the time they settle for C, and sometimes they don't even contend on the tier list. So yeah, I think it is very hard to distinguish what this deck places into in this current metagame because it really varies depending on the set of other meta decks on the certain week or certain month, no? So the thing that we can take away from the Mermaid Atlantean, it is very explosive going first and can be very tough to break once they set up likes of Waterbury Statue on their field, and sometimes they could make the deck alter their going first, going to the likes of Appaloosa above Goddess, and sometimes going into the Ice Barrier type of game where they utilize Synchro Monsters of the Ice Barrier and Ice Jade uh, extra deck. And I think Mermaid Atlantean as a deck is really solid, and if the environment doesn't really know what they are facing, I think it can get a lot of wins, and most people doesn't have any bullets against you, and I think you can just overwhelm everyone once you outwit them with your combos and unique or distinct type of deck building tech choices here. And moving on next, we do have Gem Knights. So Gem Knights got support from Suda and it just snowballed from that. It got so much better and the deck is alive, very alive right now. I think people really underrate this deck because I have a few friends that is dominating the competition on our locals and overall in the country of Philippines. They have been performing really solid on their locals, online tournaments, and on my testings against them. They're very, very adequate on playing the Gem Knights. And the thing with this deck is sometimes it has too much gas, but sometimes it just falls flat. There's days that you would think that the deck is not even meta, or yeah, you would try to find something that is missing on this deck. I think they have expressed that kind of thought or emotion to me when they explain what are the weaknesses of the deck. Sometimes it just stupidly loses to anything. But I think Gem Knights is a serial winner on bigger regions like Japan, South Korea, Taiwan, China. It is very proven because it tops on every week, every single week, or even every single day. It tops on those major regions. So I think you just have to believe on this deck and try to calibrate the weaknesses and also play it in your own preference or style, because sometimes people would settle for a mid-range type of gem knights with more hand traps, more staples, walls on the main deck, Droll, Nibiru, no? And sometimes people would incorporate Zamina or Finsmith. So I think you just need to find your cup of tea on this deck and it will be smooth sailing from that point forward. Next would be Tenpai Dragon. So another deck that is proven by the wits of time since 2023. Tenpai has been here, and I think Tenpai Dragon as a deck is just going to be timeless, considering that you are the only deck that wants to go second every single time. Doesn't matter if you lose the die roll or not, you're just going to go second and you're going to catch a lot of people off guard with your board breakers, hand traps, and the more usual way of playing Tenpai Dragon would be stacking up Nyalos, Purulya, Fualos, Maxi on their main deck and just throw them on your opponent and draw and draw and draw after days and days. So you're just getting your engines, even though your tune rise at R1 and you have Sangen summoning at R1, doesn't matter because you're going to draw a lot of cards from Fualis and Maxi alone. And you would have likes of Ultimate Slayer, the likes of Forbidden Droplet, Raigeki, Lightning Storm on your main deck, ready to devastate everything on this metagame. So yeah, I just think that Tenpai Dragon will be a solid C tier or sometimes B tier if we count the Tenpai Dragon, Dragon Maid, Tenpai Dragon, Dragon Link, the Finn Smith Tenpai Dragon with Bestials from the Chinese regions. I think Tenpai Dragon would be higher than this, but it is inappropriate if I would just categorize all of those decks into one Tenpai Dragon because it is different. The Finn Smith Bestial Tenpai is not the same as the Tenpai Dragon pure that we see on Japan every single week. So yeah, it's different. And moving on next, we do have Labyrinth. Very solid deck. I think if you want to just have a stable deck, deck that does something good, very resilient, very stable, I think Labyrinth is the best for you. And Labyrinth developed into a trap heavy deck with floodgates, more high impact trap cards like the barrier, trap track, and also the likes of the dimensional barrier in the main deck. And the recent development was they're now trying to play furniture cards and they are trying to make a certain labyrinth list that has furniture cards but doesn't have too much of it. So they're just trying to find the balance within the raw trap version labyrinth with the furniture labyrinth or the IKEA labyrinth right now. As far as I'm concerned, on the smaller regions like Philippines, Indonesia, Malaysia, Thailand, and the likes, they have been playing the labyrinth with those small amount of furniture engine. But on bigger regions, Japan, South Korea, you would see that Labyrinth doesn't even play the furniture cards. But I think it is very exciting to see the development of Labyrinth, whether they would evolve as a deck like something like Eldritch No Sub-Terror, for example, that just relies on Floodgate, high impact traps, or they would devolve back towards their furniture IKEA Labyrinth, the usual way of playing Labyrinth with simultaneous chains and interactive gameplay with their hand shenanigans, no? Next would be Chimera Finn Smith. I think if you want to look at a deck that is very successful in the Philippines, aside from Tenpai Dragon, Chimera Finn Smith has been a serial winner and it has won so many events. Joshua Coriano, An Kipit, and the likes of Ren Spongo. All of those names that I have said are really solid on playing Chimera Finn Smith. And if you can see a player that plays Chimera Finn Smith religiously, or at least adeptly, I think you would see what I am saying, that this deck is really insane on the hands of the right pilot. I think it doesn't matter what the format will become or how the format will shape, even though they have lost Bet3, copies of Engraver, yeah, they have lost some major pieces already on the previous two ban lists from before, but they're still proven to be winning on every single region. And I think that's just how good the Chimera Finn Smith is right now. Uh, as a matter of fact, if I'm just going to be biased, I think I would rate this deck on B, low B, or mid B, for example, no? Because it is really insanely good on minor regions like Philippines, Indonesia, and Malaysia, no? But on bigger regions, it doesn't come close towards the numbers of the AS tier decks. That's why it was ranked low. But all in all, it is really solid. Moving on towards the B tier, we do have Snake Eyes, White Forest as a Mina. So technically, junk deck, you toss everything in the kitchen, the Finn Smith, the Azamina, the White Forest, the Snake Eyes, the Sinful Spoils, all of those all together meshed in a singular deck that is very explosive, can be resilient, and offers a lot of grounds to cover in the game. And I think that's just the modern tier elements or something like that, no? Just engines piled up together and magically works together. I think this deck is eternal as well, like tier elements. The power creeping is the only thing that could overcome this deck. But right now, it is not stopping, and we are getting more Sinful Spoils related support from All-In this coming 2-3 weeks from now, no? So, this deck would still get better, but I think not higher than A for my own assumption. Next would be Christon. I think Christon is a deck that you should pick up right now. And I think people have been trying to downplay the success of Christon by saying that, yeah, Memento Atlan is better, Malice is better, or what. But it doesn't change the fact that Christon just bursted into the metagame, and took everyone by surprise from their new support. And I think Christon has been winning each big locals in Japan for quite a numerous weeks already. And even on South Korea, it is really strong. And I think people have been still not accustomed on playing against Christian because they still doesn't react properly against this deck, and they don't really respect it on their side patterns. So yeah, sometimes it just feels like Christian has too much freedom to outwit everyone in this metagame because people doesn't respect them enough, and also Christian is very ridiculously consistent and can also be able to dish out some of the terrifying boss monsters in the game. Next would be Ryzil. So, Fall from Grace, no? It used to be alone on the S tier. People have been also saying that this deck was close to tier 0 on the previous ban list, but right now they have fallen short. But I think they have survived in a good way, that they are not broken anymore, that they will be hit from the ban list on the succeeding formats, and they are not also not low enough to be considered as a dead deck right now. The deck is a far stretch claim on this type of deck, but it doesn't really feel like that. It is still consistent. It just lost some of the consistency cards that they had, the bonfire from the previous ban list, with the Tachyon going to 2, X going to 1, and Dweller being gone means that Orcus can demolish you. But yeah, I think it is still very consistent, and if people can try to adapt the Ryzil into the current modern metagame, they will be have they will be having advantages because the deck is spacious enough, and it just takes one card combo every single time to dish out the desired board of Ryzil. So yeah, I think it is still very functional at this moment. Next would be White Force as a Mina. So probably one of the best combo decks that you could play right now. And yeah, I think it's just so gaseous. It has so many extenders, and also it will even get better because it will get more new support this coming Alin. And I think with White Forest as a mina, it utilized all of the supports, barrage of supports for the allure of the sinful spoils, and they have been the breadwinner of those archetype or sub archetypes. No, so I think they have won marginally with a set of cards, and I think the Snake Eyes was overshadowed by the White Forest. Marketing wise, it is more marketable for the lens of public people, and also Azamina is a generically strongly stupidly good omni negate plus board on your engine, no. So I think it is so strong right now that it can even dish out one of the strongest boards that we have seen on the recent modern Yu-Gi-Oh. And moving on, next we do have Dragon Maid. I'm going to be honest. I think Dragon Maid is really ridiculously consistent and strong. And I think even though it doesn't do so much things on the board, it just ends on two bounces with the tiding and the heretic seals and the omni negate from Shu and the follow up from the Shu or sometimes house. No, I think the amount of hand traps and also non engines on the deck, and also the freedom of people to innovate the Dragon Maid makes it a very strong contender in this metagame. Sometimes you would see Dragon Maid with controlling cards like Solemn Strike on the main deck, Summon Limit, and Rivalry, and sometimes you would see Dragon Maid with Sangen Kaimen Tenpai targets, with Jinroku Chundra on the main deck. You would see Dragon Maid in a single deck, and yeah, I think the variants of Dragon Maid is so many right now, and even 60 Dragon Maid does something in this meta. No, so I think Dragon Maid is one of the decks that you could invest right now because it is very cheap, even though the prices of the Dragon Maid cards are getting higher each week. Each week that it passes by, post QCTB, I think it is still a good moment to invest on this Dragon Maid. And if you don't know what to pick up or what to play in this metagame, I really vouch for Dragon Maid. Very easy to use, understandable to a certain degree. The combos are pretty linear. The only thing that separates a good Dragon Maid player from a really great player is the timing of your effects and how you would manage the interruptions of your minuscule type of board compared to other ridiculous explosive boards here like the White Forest, the Snake Eyes, the Primate Blue Eyes, no? So I think you would just need to understand your opponent better and use your interruptions properly, and also manage your resources as well, because we're not playing the old Dragon Maid that wants to grind out games. I think Dragon Maid is a deck that can close out games early on with two, three hand traps on your hand with two bounces and one Omni Negate. I think it could seal a victory already on turn 2 or 3, and it just dish out so many bodies on the field once the house or shoe uh, extends their play with the standby phase effect, no? So I think Dragon Maid is a solid deck to pick up right now overall. Moving on next towards the 8 tier, we do have Memento Atlan. So people have been saying that Memento Atlan would be the best deck in this January format weeks ago. From the post December reaction of most people, they have been trying to say that Memento Atlan is the best out there, but sadly didn't uh, materialize yet in this metagame. Because of the QCTV, it was really abysmal for them because finally they have the chance to be the best deck or at least be the second best deck on this metagame. But the QCTV uh, produced some of the most craziest supports that we have seen for Orcus, Dragonmaid, and Punk, no? So yeah, kinda it is very bad for Memento Land that they have lost the chance of being the best. But for me, I think Memento Atlan is a really powerful deck, especially if people doesn't really prepare on you too much, and they would focus on Orcus and Blue Ice Primate, or the likes of Malice and Dragon Maid. No, they have been focusing too much on those decks. They would side in Lancea, all of those system downs to target the Orcus. No, and sometimes they don't have any answers for you, and you could get away with so many wins from that. And the provincial tournaments in the Philippines was almost always won by Memento Atlan. People like Effie from our community and from the other parts of regions in the Philippines, Memento Atlan has been very successful. And I think on those environments that people are not really knowledgeable on stopping Memento Atlan, knowing when to hand trap against the deck, and also uh, misusing their interruptions on this Memento Atlan can be very scarce and can really punish them. And moving on next, we do have Malice. So for me, I thought Malice would be the best deck. Post banlist, even though it lost Gold Sark and Allure, I think it has so much consistency, so much draw power, and also can be resilient. Aside from the fact that it instantly loses to Artifact Lancea, I think it has all of the tools to be the best deck. But I was proven wrong because the crazy support of Orcus came. The Link one is just so immense, and also Blue Eyes Primate has been untouched by the ban list. So yeah, I think those two are just millage better than the Malice. But for me, Malice is still a really great deck, and it will get even better with ALIN getting cyber supports, link supports, and those can be a game changer for Malice. In a matter of weeks, 2 weeks from now, Malice could be the best deck, flat out best deck on this tier list. And we are going to see whether it would materialize, or I'm just overhyping the Malice and upcoming Malice, indirect Malice support, no? But for now, I think it is a really solid A tier. And you couldn't go wrong with Malice unless you are very scared on losing against Artifact Lancea. Moving on next towards the S tier, we do have Blue Eyes Primate. As a matter of fact, I see Blue Eyes Primate as the best deck right now, but I cannot argue with numbers. I cannot really lie to myself that I would just believe hindsight with the Blue Eyes Primate being the best, while Orcus is the most represented deck on bigger regions, bigger locals on Japan, Korea, China, Taiwan. Orcus has been outnumbering the results of the Blue Eyes Primate. So I just think that Blue Eyes Primate is really strong right now. Probably one of the best decks that you could pick up. And the Primate is massive for this deck. It doesn't really consume your Blue Eyes engine. It just uh, makes your Blue Eyes infinitely better. And I think as a deck, it is complete. It is a deck that can play around floodgates, can play around hand traps, can be resilient. Doesn't even play cold by or cross out because it doesn't fear Maxi Voalos, no, Purulia, Nyalos to some degree. So I think it is very bold, and this is what I like for a deck. It reminds me of Phantom Knight's Adventure DP and other decks that has so much coverage and ground of resiliency that they can outwit or outmaneuver every single interruptions in the game. So I think that's the unique character of Blue Eyes Primate. It has so many intangibles, and they're really tough to break, to be honest. Moving on next, we do have Orcus. So the numbers won't lie. Orcus is the most represented and most winningest deck in this current metagame. They have been proven to be effective by most likely Japanese people, and I think they are really telegraphing that Orcus is the best deck right now, considering that it doesn't consume too much space on the main deck. It is one card combo. With the Link 1, you are able to do anything you want. Once you access the Link 1, you are going to snowball from that, and you would use your 4 3 of your hand cards to interrupt the opponent with bunch of hand traps, Impulse, Maxi, Ash, Railer, Nibiru, all of those. And I think it would be lessened by playing Finn Smith engine, but Even though Finn Smith Orcus is the most explosive version of Orcus right now, I think the pure version of Orcus is the version of Japanese people saying that you don't need to be very explosive, you don't really need crazy combos or something like that. You just need to be consistent on what you are doing and just play the most optimal hand traps in this metagame or the environment that you're playing, and you would have the best deck out there. So I think the mid-range capability of Orcus is off the charts right now. One card combo, and also playing all of those controlling cards like the Solemn Strike on the main deck and even the likes of the Summon Limit, no, I think Arcus just gets away with so many staples on their deck, and they can probably answer almost all of their matchups in this metagame spread from S to D. They can answer that with their pool of hand traps on their deck, and I think that's what makes Orcus really scary right now. It has so much room for non-engines to be able to answer all of these decks are ridiculously insanely strong, and there's not many decks that could do that. Even Voice's Voice would suffer from that if they side out those extra pre-prep or extra sa Uravis, no? And also Dragon Maid doesn't have that much space as much as Orcus because they still have to play the big dragons, the Stern, the Lorpar, and the Tin Catch, and also they're playing the Tidings and the Hospitalities and the Changeover, no? So I think Orcus just only has a few Garnets, and they could get away from drawing that if they can discard those cards from their mechanic, no? So it is very consistent, and it can be able to play the flawless cards on the main deck without any issues because you can just discard those cards. And also Droplet is very immense for Orcus, and it is also pivotal on going second because Droplet just eliminates almost every single threat on this metagame. Baron de Fleur, Shu, and the likes of Skull Guardian, they would get rattled with one Forbidden Droplet. So I think overall Orcus just covers so many grounds in this metagame. That's why it has to be the best deck on paper this format pre-ALIN. So we would see whether ALIN introduces something different for us and changes the landscape of our Yu-Gi-Oh! OCG this early 2025. So that sums up our video for tonight. If you found this video informative and helpful, please consider subscribing. It definitely motivates me a lot to keep providing this content for you guys. So once again, thank you for watching. See you in the next one. Peace.